Chuck Todd had W. Kamau Bell and Louis Black on Meet the Press to discuss political satire and The Daily Show and comedy, and he slipped up and revealed a little too much information about the constraints on him and the mainstream media. Let's watch.
Should you guys be held responsible if people are cynical and think all government's broken? Because that's the other premise of this initial article.
No. That started way before this.
Right.
I really do think part of the problem is that the cynicism is caused by the fact that more in the course of my lifetime and having lived in Washington, that Washington is increasingly in a bubble, much the same way that a lot of people who live in Hollywood are in a bubble. When I started going on the road 25 years ago and I was told, well, you're too angry, you're not going to get it. What I was discovering was they were angrier than I was. And there's a sense of disenfranchisement now that I think is seen in the number of people who went and voted that I have just never experienced in my lifetime. Right. And I've watched you and everybody else where somebody comes on, and I don't know how you do it because I don't know how you do it. I'd be barking at them because they'll sit there and go, and you sit there.
We all sit there because we all know the first time we bark, it's the last time we do the show. Yeah. There's something sometimes where it's the last time you're ever, all of a sudden, nobody will come on your show, right? Yeah. There is that balance.
How pathetic is that? He's admitting the flaws of himself and the mainstream media, and he's acting as if, well, that's just how it works, right? That's just the normal thing. Right, Chuck. Within your little dumbass Washington establishment bubble, that's how it works, and nobody questions it, and everybody thinks it's okay, and it's hunky-dory. Outside of your bubble, that's outrageous. You want to know why? Because the job of the media is to be adversarial. The job of the media is to be the watchdog on power, not the lapdog of power, as my partner over at TYT, Cenk Uygur, puts so wonderfully in that nice little phrase. But he's admitting it and acting like that's just the par for the course. That's just, what do you mean? That's normal. It's normal for me to suck up to people in power. It's normal for me to not be hard on them. It's normal for me to parrot the elite and the establishment line because that's my job. That's what I'm paid to do. If everybody in the mainstream media just got together and all agreed, hey guys, how about we are all adversarial and we all do our job and we are all tough on the people in power? Guess what? They wouldn't have a choice. They would have to give you guys interviews, and no matter where they went, they would be getting tough questions. But they don't do that. Now, why don't they do that? Because the system is geared and the system is structured to make sure that the people who would question the people in power never get the promotions anyway. There's a reason why Cenk is off MSNBC. Cenk, not only was he hard on the Republicans, which is okay on the Democratic network, but he was also hard on the Democrats. He was hard on everybody. He was hard on the establishment. And what happened? They said, here, why don't you take $1 million and go to the weekend spa and just calm down with the critique of the Democrats, and then we're all happy, right? And Cenk stood up and said, how about fuck that? How about no? How about I know what my job is, and I'm responsible to the people. I'm responsible to the American people who've entrusted me with standing up against people who are corrupt and people who don't represent them. The whole purpose of government is that in a representative democracy, they're supposed to represent the people, as long as we're not talking about a constitutional issue, of course. So if they're not representing the American people, which as of right now, of course, the government is not representing the American people, then the media should be the first one to talk about that, and their fucking hair should be on fire screaming about all this stuff. But Chuck Todd is like, what do you mean? I mean, the whole reason I got promoted was that I sit there with the powerful and I go, patty cake, baker's man, bake me a cake as fast as you can. I mean, even the question about satire shows you Chuck Todd's perspective. He goes, well, you know, everybody in comedy and in political satire, they're really like hard on the politicians. And so don't you think that you guys are responsible for some of the cynicism out there in America? No, Chuck. The comedians are actually a voice for the angry not minority, majority in America. The comedians are a voice. They are an outlet for speaking truth to power, for exposing the absurdity of the establishment and the people that run our lives. The comedians are the people who more represent the will of the majority. And by the way, if you watch The Daily Show, for example, he gives more facts in his show than you'll get on CNN all day long or in the nightly news all day long. So it's just frustrating that it's become it's become an of course to people like Chuck Todd that they know that they're not doing their job and they're fine with it. And they act like, well, that's just how the system works. You know, this reminds me a lot of how it works with money in politics. How now you've gotten to a point where different people in the mainstream media, when they report on this, they just frame it as an of course or as a duh. So they'll say like, well, you know, Jeb Bush, while he may not be popular right now, he is one of the few so-called serious candidates because he's going to be able to raise the most money. So when it comes down to it, he's going to be one of the leading contenders, or he's going to be up there in the Republican primary field. It's like, wait, how do you come to that conclusion? Well, they come to that conclusion because they know money rules the political system, and if you raise more money, you're more likely to get elected because you're more likely to get your name out there more, and you're more likely to crush your opponents who are unknown. So they talk about the issue of money in politics as if it's an of course, as if it's a duh, as if that's normal, as if nobody should be outraged by that. Of course we should be outraged by that. You're telling us that whoever raises the most money has a better chance of winning. That's not how a democracy is supposed to function. The better ideas are supposed to have a better chance of winning, but that never happens in America. What happens is who has the biggest wallet, who was able to suck up to Wall Street better, who was able to suck up to the military-industrial complex better. So we need to reverse this, man, and that's where new media comes in. New media comes in because our job is we're not beholden to the same interests that they are. I don't give a fuck about access. I don't care about access. I don't give a shit if Joe Biden or somebody comes on my show. Fuck them. I'd rather not have them on my show because I'm more likely to speak brutally honestly about them if they're not on my show. I don't want to know him personally because I'm sure personally he's a nice guy, but I don't give a shit about him personally. I care about his actions. I care about his policies. I care about how what he does affects every single one of you listening right now and all of the American people. I'm spitting all over the place here because of my rant. So let me conclude by saying this. Enough is enough. This is why mainstream media is dying and new media is taking over, because we understand what the idea of a free press is and what it's supposed to be. And it's not supposed to have the biases that the mainstream media has. The mainstream media has totally sold out to the establishment and to the elite, and they have a false neutrality bias. And in the case of MSNBC, they have a Democratic Party bias, which is not the same as a progressive bias, for the record. Fox News has a Republican bias, which is not the same as a conservative bias, for the record. So everybody's got their biases, but the one bias they share is the establishment bias. They need access. They need to talk to those politicians, and they have to treat them with deference, because if they don't treat them with deference, then they're not taken seriously in those circles, and they want to be. Well, what we say is, we don't give a shit if you take us seriously. We know we're the serious people because we're talking about serious issues. You guys are on the other hand, are engaged in a circle jerk of money and power as you screw over the American people and laugh about it.